I'm excited to have my friend Ashley on the podcast today, and we're going to be talking about exercise and strength training. And also, especially if you're someone who has some chronic pain or you have aches and pains and you get into that fear cycle of pain, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be touching on strength training and stretching and the importance of each. And I just want to encourage you guys that if you need some support, that if you've been thinking that you want to get out of the cycle you're in, stop being stuck, and want to start to maintain some consistency, I encourage you to set up a free call with me. There's going to be a link down below, and we can go over your goals and where you're struggling and what that gap is to get you to where you need to be. You'll also find a link down below about different ways to work with me, from my online personal training app to health coaching and my course, Healthy Inside and Out. So don't hesitate. If you are feeling stuck, reach out today. Hi friends, and welcome to the Healthy Beyond 40 show. I'm Michele, mama 4 and military wife, and I'm passionate about helping women get healthy from the inside out so they can feel better and live their best life. Do you feel like you're struggling to lose weight and get in shape? If you're ready to develop healthier habits, exercise consistently, and lose weight sustainably, then you're in the right place. I combine my expertise from my doctorate in physical therapy to my experience as a health coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher to bring you actionable steps for a healthy lifestyle. No magic pill here, so lace up those shoes and get moving. Hi, Ashley, and welcome to the show today. I'm so excited to have you on. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So first off, thank you for having me. So I have been a trainer since 2012, and how I got into training was through CrossFit. So I grew up a dancer. I was always active, but I was never really introduced to strength training. Like, I loved to work out, but I never really knew how to strength train or anything. So there was a CrossFit gym that opened up near where I was living, and I gave it a quick Google, and I was like, I think I could be good at this, because I always had a more muscular body type. And I saw these pictures of these girls lifting weights and looking super strong, and I wanted that. So I went to my first CrossFit class, and from then I was pretty much hooked. I really loved strength training and the focus around what your body could do versus being as small as possible, which was the messaging that I grew up hearing. My mom was always on a diet. It was always about being as skinny as possible. And then especially with being in the dance world, that we were always trying to be as small as possible. And so it was a new narrative that I really latched onto and just loved it. And after my first year of CrossFit, I knew I wanted to become a trainer. So I got certified, started coaching group classes, also got certified for nutrition coaching. And then in 2020, I broke my ankle. That was really a defining moment for me. I had to have ankle ligament reconstruction, and then I was in physical therapy for 6 weeks. And then as soon as I could walk again, they were like, okay, you're good to go. Just ease back into working out. And as somebody who had been a trainer for 7 years at that point, I'm like, I'm not really sure what you mean, and this is ridiculous. And so that led me to really seeking out my own answers for how to fully complete my rehab to make sure I wouldn't get re-injured. And so ended up coming across this company called Active Life, and they're a remote company who their coaches help people just like me, people who are done with physical therapy or dealing with some kind of injury, but they're not where they want to be. And so I got my own coach through them. And then I also saw that they had coaching education to educate coaches around how to be this person for people. So it's this year-long program taught by physical therapists where I learned how to also bridge that gap. Went through that training program. It's called Active Life Professional. Did that. And then I started helping people in this way, helping people who are dealing with that nagging pain and they want to get rid of it for good. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and that's a really quick, once you walked, you were discharged from PT. And sometimes that's insurance-based. Sometimes it can just be the place you're at.
Mhm.
But yeah, you definitely need that bridge from sort of that acute injury healing to really strengthening whatever injury that is and really learning how to use your body to prevent it from happening again, especially with ankle injuries and ankle sprains. Once you get one, you're more likely, that percent is super high for it to happen again. So it's really important to bridge that gap. I also want to bring up how you said you changed the narrative that was in your mind to thinking about what your body can do and not just to be as skinny as possible. And for everybody, that new narrative might be a little bit different, but I think that's so important to really take hold of what your thoughts are and what is driving you and change that to something that works, something that is really true and not just led by our culture. So I love that. So tell us a little bit about what happens in our mind when we get an injury or we have some nagging chronic pain.
Yeah. So usually what happens in our mind is we freak out and we want to go to the doctor and we think worst case scenario that we're going to have to get surgery or something like that. Or maybe we go to the doctor and they don't do imaging, but they say, don't do anything that hurts. Or maybe they do imaging and the MRI shows that you have degeneration of a disc or that you have a herniated disc. And so now that you have this information, you think that, oh my gosh, like it's going to be like this forever. I'm going to be in pain forever. And that's just not the case. It's not the case, but that is how our healthcare system kind of works right now. And so I find that people who are dealing with nagging pain will really limit themselves in terms of what they can do because they think that's just how it is. Like it hurts for me to bend over and pick something up, so I can't like pick things up. So then they like stop doing what quote unquote hurts, and then all that happens is they just get weaker and weaker over time. And so it's really like this self-limiting narrative, and people just like think that they have to accept that they can't do X, Y, Z, or they're gonna feel like this forever.
Yeah, and there is actually studies that show when people get an MRI and let's say it shows a herniated disc, not everyone who shows that on an image has pain. But once someone has been told by a doctor, you have a herniated disc, degenerative disease, arthritis, their pain goes up. Nothing has changed in their body. So there's really this huge mind-body connection when it comes to pain, especially chronic pain. So something that you've had for a little bit, and we get that somatic, like fear-based response. So we know that one time when I reached down for something, it caused pain. Well, guess what? You now have fear every time you do that, and that's increasing your pain. It doesn't mean there is any more injury or anything there. It can be this mind-body response. And just like you were saying, it's really important that we don't limit ourselves because of something. We have to think what's actually going to cause more damage, because sometimes actual movement, depending on your injury, can help to bring blood flow and can help to heal, to avoiding it. But that's where you really need to work with someone to help guide you.
Yes, there's so much education involved with the work that I do with clients because, like you're saying, people think that pain equals damage, but pain does not necessarily equal damage. It's like you're saying, the mind impacts how we're actually feeling so much. And so it's just important to get education and realize, like, okay, just because this hurts doesn't necessarily mean it's doing more actual damage to my body.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit why strength training is crucial when you're healing from injuries.
Yeah. So for a lot of times when we're dealing with pain, we have certain areas of the body that are going to feel tight. So I'm going to take back pain, for example, because that's one of the most common things that I see. So if we're dealing with back pain, we usually have like really tight hips or a really tight low back. And we think, well, I just need to stretch more. Well, what if you don't have a flexibility issue and you have a weakness issue. Stretching more isn't actually going to solve your problem. Like, yes, it can help you feel better, which is great. Like, feeling better in the moment is great, and that's a tool we can use, but it's not a long-term solution to getting you out of back pain. Because if the reason you're in back pain in the first place is due to a weakness or strength imbalance, then unless we fix that, it's going to stay there. And so I think, again, this comes back to an education piece for people, is realizing that just because your body feels a certain way does not necessarily mean like you know the answer. And like a lot of times stretching is part of the equation, but it's not the full equation, because you usually need a mix of stretching and strengthening, because that strengthening piece is what's going to result in long-term change.
Yeah. And I also want to bring up, like you gave this example with the back, and at first you mentioned tight hips. And just because we have pain or dysfunction somewhere doesn't mean that's the only place we need to work. So let's say our hips are tilted forward, which can sort of compress our back. We need to stretch the front of our hips. We might need to check our hamstring length or different muscle strength down there. So it is more than just the area a lot of times, because we can have joints above and below that are affecting what's going on. So that can be really helpful to look at that.
On that note, that's why taking like a full body approach to what you're dealing with is so important. And that's what I do with my clients too. It's like, we're assessing and testing your full body joint by joint, because just because your back hurts doesn't mean that's like the root of the problem. So I just wanted to add that in there too, like above and below, lots of other factors.
And tell me, do you also look at posture? Because posture can be huge, those habitual positions that we take each day.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times somebody's posture is going to show up in like the flexibility and mobility assessments that I do with people. Like I can tell by their positioning and where they're feeling limitations or tightness. So that's definitely also part of the equation too. And that also goes into lifestyle too. Like, do they sit at a desk for 8 hours? Can we change positions? Right? Just simple stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about strength training and healthy aging. I would love to hear your perspective.
Yep. So strength training is the key to feeling good as you age, no matter how you slice it. Because if we think about, so for the people listening, like if you're thinking about like your parents, you're probably thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't want to end up like my parents, who are probably like less mobility. They can't move around a lot. You're probably having to accommodate plans to them depending on like how far of a walk is it? Is that going to bother their knees? Things like that. If that's the case with your parents, I bet they do not do any strength training. And as we age, we're already losing muscle mass just by existing. And so if we're not even strength training at all to build muscle, or like, and not eating enough protein, then we're going to be in even worse shape. And especially with something like joint pain, which usually really becomes a thing for people once they hit 40 and then even 50s. Doctors might be mentioning joint replacements and things like that. And it's probably just due to lack of strength and muscle mass. And I really encourage people, like if you're listening and you're dealing with joint pain and you're thinking about getting surgery to solve your problem, I encourage you to try strength training first with a coach and see how you feel after building some muscle. It helps us just live a better life. And we're thinking about like going upstairs or being able to play with your kids, or being able to like go on a run with your kid or whatever that is. Muscle is going to make that easier for you. And so if you're somebody who does want to feel good as you age, then you need to be doing some type of strength training in order to make that possible.
Yeah, and I really liked how you brought up before a surgery, like a total knee replacement or total hip, or something where it might be beneficial to work with a coach first. Sometimes insurance will actually pay for you to work with a PT before a surgery, and you might actually find that you start to feel better. I've had so many clients just in general, when they start to strength train, that their aches and pains decrease and go away, that their pain starts to go down. And this is really huge. So let's say you do strength training. Maybe you still might need that surgery. But if you go into surgery stronger, you're going to have a better outcome. A lot of doctors actually want people to do physical therapy before a total knee, for example. So it can really be a win-win no matter the outcome of the situation. So if you do the strength training, maybe you don't need a surgery, you feel stronger and better, or maybe you still need the surgery, but you go into that surgery stronger and your recovery is going to be so much better. And especially if you're not an expert in strength training, it really helps to have someone lead you through a strength training program on how to build muscle, how to exercise correctly, how to have that flexibility and movement that you need so you can reach down and tie your shoes, do those very functional things.
Yeah. And what you said about, like, if you go into surgery stronger, your recovery is going to be so much better. That is also so huge too. Like, especially if somebody who is going into any type of surgery, your recovery will be so much better if you are stronger. Like, people think like, oh, I'm just going to get the surgery and all my problems are going to be solved. No, if you are going to, like, if you're not doing any type of strength training, like, your recovery is going to be 10 times harder than if you spent some time building some muscle.
Ashley, tell us a little bit more about where people can find you. I know you have a podcast, and also what type of people you work with.
Yep. So the type of person that I work with is somebody who enjoys being active, whether you hike or run or lift weights, CrossFit, whatever you want. You love being active and you want to stay active as you get older. You're somebody who wants to get rid of your nagging pain that keeps coming up. You might be stuck in this cycle of re-injury, I like to call it. You rest until it feels better, but then when you start moving again, the pain is back. So you're somebody who wants to stop that cycle and solve it for good. And I do one-on-one work with people. You can find me on Instagram, Ashley Crocker 127. And then I have a podcast, Embrace Strength. It's on all the podcast platforms, but Instagram will get you all the links and everything.
Perfect. And I will have those links down below. And Ashley, thanks so much for being on the podcast today and sharing your wisdom. I hope everyone is encouraged to start strength training if they haven't, or to continue, because this is really something we need to keep doing for life, and we need to start wherever we are. All right, everyone. Hope you guys have a good day and keep on moving.